Hello and welcome to IT Security Labs. My name is Howard and this is my weekly live show. I show you how to do ethical hacking live on YouTube, and then we do some analysis of the traffic and try to understand what happened when we were doing our ethical hacking. So right here I have a diagram of our network. As you can see, we have a firewall, a Kali Linux machine, an intrusion detection system. We even have Splunk in this lab environment. But today we're going to be attacking a machine, Windows machine that sits down here on the network. It's going to be a Windows client. We're going to be assuming the attacker is already on the network. So this person has been either let in on the network through some other means, or you gave them an IP address and they're sitting on your network right now. They're attacking this machine down here. We are going to look at the traffic as it goes through the intrusion detection system. In this case, it's going to be Suricata, Zik, and we're just going to see what does attack traffic look like when we are attacking this. My machine this week is called Breach, and I'm running it here in VMware ESXi. So as you can see, the machine is sitting right here. This machine here is mirroring traffic, of course, to Security Onion, and that's what we are doing here. So without wasting time, let's go ahead and attack this machine, see what the traffic looks like, and by the end of this, you should know how to enumerate Windows file shares, then attack a random file application that might be set up on any system. So I'm going to show you how to research that, and then of course, we're going to catch a shell using Metapredator, which is allowed in the OSCP. Then I'll show you how easy it is to enumerate a system once you get low privileged access to a system. So this is really fun stuff, and I'm very excited to be doing it. So thanks all for being here, and BT, it's good to see you again. And Shadow, thanks for joining. All right, so my machine is on 192.168.38. I think it's 163. So this is my Kali Linux. I'm just signing in. It's running in this weird undercover mode. So what I'll do is I'll say nmap -sv -sc slock s. I would like to do all ports on 192.168.38.163. So right now what we're doing is we're just scanning our system and say, hey, nmap, let us know, what do you see on this system? This is the enumeration part of our phase. So SV says, hey, tell me the service versions. If you see a service, I'd like to know the version so that it's easy for us to quickly find out what service that is, and also we can do a simple Google search to see if the service is vulnerable. SC, we use Nmap's default scripts, and this P here says, hey, scan all 65 or so 65,000 ports for TCP. You need to run -SU for a UDP, so this is just for TCP ports. I should have done a -VV so that I can see this verbose, but when you run Nmap this way, of course, I already ran it. I didn't want it to hang here. When you run Nmap this way, it'll give you all this noise here. Right away, we see that we have port 21, FTP. We need to enumerate FTP. Right away, it doesn't show us whether or not anonymous login is allowed. Nmap is really good at figuring that one out. So in this case, we know that it's actually not going to be anonymous allowed here. But of course, it doesn't hurt to try. But we have FTP. A lot of FTP services, especially these third-party services, do install SSH for like SCP, for like moving files and things like that. So in this case, we see that it's Wing FTP. In this case, it's SFTPD. That's the protocol that we need for SSH. And it doesn't say its version here, but we have seen a service already. Again, on port 80, the same service is running. So this service is running it has opened a lot of ports. This one is like 200 OK here, so we know we can actually try to access port 80 for this thing. It's very easy here to get overwhelmed with all these ports, but if you have seen these ports over and over again, which is why I encourage you to practice with me, it becomes less overwhelming. So far, that Wing FTP is the most interesting thing. And this is, by default, comes with Windows. And then 443 is open. Again, the same wing FTP. This thing opens a ton of ports. It's insane. And of course, we have 445 and 9090 for wing FTP. Another thing that you should notice here is, as an administrator, when you are installing these third-party applications, you should be asking yourself, do I need all these services that the one application is going to open? We also have port 5466 for that wing FTP service again. So it's safe to say wing FTP is going to be my target for today because it's everywhere in my Nmap results. So that's the first thing here. But before we start exploiting wing FTP, I wanted to show you our intrusion detection system. When we ran our Nmap, look what just happened here very quickly. We saw a spike in events. Our baseline was, say, maybe let's just guess here, 5,000, 7,000, under 10,000. Right away, when we started scanning with Nmap, we saw a lot of events all the way to 70,000. This should, for someone who's learning like myself and you, if you have never seen something like this, it's an indicator of compromise, or at least it doesn't say we've been hacked, but it does sure show you that someone is doing funny business in your network. So let me change this to last 2 hours. So there's something to be learned about just looking at your baselines. Oh, what's normal in my environment? And then what happens when people start running tools like Nmap? It might look as, super simple to do, like, hey, let's just run Nmap, but Nmap is very loud. That's what I'm trying to tell you here. And this is what Nmap looks like. It sets up a user agent. When you run Nmap scan, there's a user agent that's set. So let's see. I only see a few here because I canceled the scan, but we still have some here. So here, it actually called Nmap, and as you can see, it's called by name, mostly because Nmap does set up a user agent. So if you run Nmap, just know that Suricata intrusion detection system out of the box is going to pick you up, which you might want to get caught or you might not want to. An alternative to this is write your own ping port scanner. You can write it in Python or something like that, and it's super simple. But that's what happens when you do that. Now back to our attack. Port 21, let's try that. I'm just going to open a new tab. Like to run is root here. FTP 192.168.38.163. When you see port 21, you try anonymous login, right? I didn't put the username anonymous. Let's do it again. And it failed. You owe it to yourself, if you see port 21, to try. Usually Nmap tells you that anonymous is allowed. It's very good at that. But you can also try to sign in. So far we know this port is a dead end for now, but it exists. Don't forget about it as you move on. 22 is not going to help us here. We don't have anything. And so we move on to 80. Let me just sign out of this service here so that you can see. So on port 80, we just go to 192.168.38.163. What's happening there? This is part of your enumeration. And as an attacker, if you have a methodology down, you actually we will have a better time. You will not freak out. Most people, the biggest problem is they have nerves. They don't know what to do. They think it's just too much. But if you have a methodology step by step of what you do, it just makes your life 10 times easier and you are calm all the time. All right, so port 80 is actually talking a little bit. It says it's FTP server. It doesn't tell us the version though, but as attackers, we have something under our sleeves. We know a thing or two about developers. They will tell us the year. In this case, it's 2003 to 2014. What do you think you can do here with this information, 2003 to 2014. Someone who has not done this before or who is not experienced enough, they'll be like, well, I don't know the version, but we have the year here. There's a significance to this information. Can you please let me know what I can use this information for as I'm enumerating this service? Yeah, Script Kitty, the machines, I'm actually creating a GitHub link. A GitHub link is going to be posted to all the machines that I've created and all the playlists I've created. I don't know. I've lost touch. Probably 15, 20 of these Windows machines. It's really fun. Yes, someone says Google that. Okay, so we're going to Google Wing FTP. What I'll probably do is I'll go to the creator for this service, find out their release. They'll tell us, hey, we released this version on this year. So it will tell me. So I'm just going to do a simple Google search, Wing FTP. Then we'll find out what exploits are there for it. All right. So Wing FTP exploits, we have a few here. If you are dealing with an exploit that you are not familiar with, the best thing that can ever happen to you is someone has a proof of concept that shows step by step. In this case, I see exploit DB as a remote code execution. I'll open that. Hacking articles is a one for 4.3. I'll open that. And then GitHub also has one. Rapid 7 doesn't really help you with POC. It's usually a link to exploit DB. Reddit has another one. It's usually good to see what people are saying on Reddit about these things. Packetstorm doesn't help either. Okay, I think I have a few that helps. So first, this is 6.38. We don't know the version yet. Yes. Someone says check for the round that came from 2013 to 2014. So this one was discovered in 2020, but there's a remote code execution there. And it's authenticated. This one, this is a version 4.3, probably older. This is from 2017. And it's a really nice thing because you can actually read about the exploit. This is very important for you to take some time, try to understand, like, okay, what do they say about the exploit? What's vulnerable? And how can I exploit it? And here on exploit DB, they actually tell you, hey, by the way, this thing exposes credentials in this file. Well, looking at this here, you have to be inside of the machine to know that, to get these credentials. So it's not going to help me here. So I need some password of some form, and this is how we can correct the password if you find it. But what we're interested in is the manual exploitation. It says, oh, you need to sign in. But look at this. This screenshot here looks 2003 to 2014. That looks similar to what we have. So I can with confidence know that this hacking article that I'm reading about here, and this proof of concept here, talks about what I'm actually dealing with, which is really nice. We don't want Metasploit today. We're just going to focus on here. And when you read this, it says, hey, by the way, once you sign in, there's going to be a console that allows you to run commands. We only have one problem here. We don't know the passwords. We don't know credentials. So now we know we have something that's vulnerable. We don't know how to sign in. But of course, it will be a crime for us to move on without saying admin, admin. Okay, admin password. Then we can also try SQL injections here. admin password didn't work. Okay. So this is really not going anywhere for us. Looking at this proof of concept as well, you see that they're going to port 5466. That port is also open on our system. $54.66. Okay, so let's check that port instead. $54.66. All right, so it's the same deal. It still wants us to sign in. All right, someone is probably watching this and say, well, why are we wasting time just following a proof of concept? It's very important that you can read other people's instructions and you can follow them and you can understand. And that's the main point of what I'm doing here. And then, of course, we're going to put a spin to this, make it more fun and exciting for us. And then we'll get a reverse shell here in a little bit. Okay, we don't have credentials, so this is not going to lead us anywhere. I'm going to move on to see if I can find these credentials somewhere else on this system, because so far I'm stuck. So keep that in mind. We have some vulnerable service that we have no idea how to break into. So it's running on port 80. You notice that I'm going through the ports list here to make sure that I check everything. This brings us to RPC. RPC, if you have a username and password, you can run RPC client, and it's really effective for enumerating Windows domains and user information. But right now, we are not going anywhere with that because we don't have credentials, and I'm not going to scan for it. But we have 445. Do not underestimate these default Windows ports, right? And I have a resource that we can use here. In fact, I use this all the time. Almost every single time I'm enumerating file shares, I use this. It's a hacking article. It says SMB enumeration. Very effective, very thorough. So we are actually going to use this right now before we move on. If you have a Windows system, you have to check for SMB shares and what might be happening there. And this will tell you, hey, what is SMB? How do you deal with SMB? And everything. So I'm not going to do that, all those. I'm just going to start with SMB map. I also have these in my notes, but I wanted to show you where you can find help. All right, let's run this as root. SMB map will probably fail. And while SMB map is running, let me share another one too. Another resource, if you don't like those. These ones have, I like this better because it's the checklist. I use this for the OSCP. Every time when you see Windows, do a really good job enumerating those SMB shares. So I posted a link to this. But as you can see, it's the same thing. SMB map, SMB client. In this case, authentication error. Okay, SMB map failed us. That's okay. It's talking about the authentication. Now let's go to SMB client. Let me just copy the command here because I already have all of them. Why would we do this? Because in Windows environments, people love to share file shares. So it's asking for a password. We don't have any. Hit enter. This time SMB client is talking. It's like, yeah, I know I saw some things, but it doesn't tell us whether we have permissions or not. A little trick here, you know these are default shares. The admin, the C, the IPC. This one, on the other hand, doesn't always show up. In Windows, these ones, you will almost always see them if share indexing is allowed. This is something else. It might be named something different. So you know, oh, they have something. I don't know its permissions, and you can check. But I like to cut to the chase. I don't know if I'm allowed to sign in as anonymous. But what I can do is I can do SMB client, and then 192.168.38.163. Then I want to access that share. I want to see, does it allow me with anonymous or not? And SMB client does a good job with that. Again, I don't have a password, so I'm just going to hit enter. And as you can see here, anonymous login is allowed, which is interesting. Okay, there. Right away, since we're in there, we see we have admins.xml. Remember, according to our proof of concept, this file is usually found when you sign into Windows. It's this file here. I just wanted to be a little clever. I could have done something interesting. I wanted to zip this file and put a password on it, then have you do an crack the password using John or something. But I figured it's just unnecessary hassle. But I wanted to do that for the machine to make it more interesting. But for now, we just have the file directly from our FTP. So let's go and just loot that file. I made a mistake here. So I'm going to redo this part here where I get into SMB client. I'll tell you why I think I made a mistake. I made a mistake because I'm running in this directory here. I should be running this from my working directory. And I'll tell you why. I would like you to run it from here, because then if I download files, they'll be dropped in this folder here. Right now, I don't want them to be dropped in a random location on my system. So I'm going to type exit. Very important to do. I'm running it in the root directory, and I don't want that. Run this in a directory that so you stay organized. You know, it's these little things that just makes your life easier. So if I do a dir get admin.xml, and as you can see, I downloaded it. So I've shown you FTP. This is how you do it from an SMB share. So if we do exit and cat admin.xml, we are faced with our password. We have a username, and it tells us, hey, this is for the Wing FTP server, and here's the password. But of course, this is not the real password. I just wanted to follow up with our theme from last week here. I thought it would be nice. I changed this hash here to be base64. How do we know that it's base64? It's this equal sign here. It's a dead giveaway most of the time that is base64. But if you don't know, you can always use hash identifier. But so far, we found this. So if you found a hash, you call hash identifier. Say, hey, hash identifier, what do I have? I hope hash identifier, sometimes it doesn't find it. Like this, it doesn't actually find it. So you can safely say it's base64, or you can plug this into Google. Sometimes the internet will tell us. So if I say echo, I'm just going to decode it here. Base64 minus D. On Tuesday, I'm going to post a video on how to decode and encode things in base64 and what base64 is. So watch out for a video from me on Tuesday on base64. All right, so base64 found out, oh, this is the password. We're going to take this and run as fast as we can back to our service. That is something interesting. Admin and that password. And don't save. And we're in. All right, so it says there's a trial. We don't care. We just want to attack it for now. It tells us there's a domain here. If you didn't know about this service from the proof of concept or from ExploitDB, your job is to really look around. As an attacker, the administration section is going to always be interesting to you. And if it says console, you'll be like, thank God, what kind of commands can I run here since I'm already in here? So this console here should be of interest, of course. What commands can I run? Can I do a help? And it tells us, oh, look what you can run. All these things here. You can shut down, domain list, stop server. It looks like it's just some, commands specific to this thing here. But we know better. We read about this thing. We know that we can exploit it even easier. So we're going to go back to our proof of concept where they say, oh, by the way, if you say os.execute and put some command in here, this thing will actually work. So I'm going to show you a little tip that you should always do. Before you start exploiting something, I think you should always, almost always, try with the easy things, the not so dangerous things. Don't just jump in and start adding users. Let's start with simple things like ping, Let's ping ourselves. So we're going to say os.execute, then run the command to ourselves. Let's do that right now. So we say os.execute. It's an open bracket, cmd.exe /c. I'm just going to say, let's run a ping to my Kali Linux. I really like ping because it shows me if I can run commands or not. So here's a ping, 192.168.38.71, which is my Kali Linux. Something very simple before I put any work in a real exploit here. Yeah, but before I do that, I'm just going to run TCP dump here and see if I can listen. I think my Ethernet port, if 0 is the way I need to be. Let's find out if that will actually work. Okay, so it's TCP dump. I want to listen on this interface for ICMP traffic, which is my ping. All right, now let's run this. We're telling it, hey, ping me. And come back here. The pings actually worked from my victim. This is confirmation before I invest in any money, any exploit. Only to find out that it doesn't even work. Simple things like this. Okay, now that we can ping, let's take this further. Our proof of concept says to add a user. We can try this, but I don't want to add a user. I want to get a reverse shell. Because I don't, actually, in fact, if you try to add a user in Windows Server 2016, it doesn't work. If you try on my machine that you can download in the comments here, it will not work for you. I tried it earlier. It doesn't like that. So let's get a reverse shell. So many options to choose from with reverse shell. I'm going to do something that I don't usually do. That is to use MS of Venom. I don't usually generate my payloads with MS of Venom most of the time. But why not? You can use a bunch of MS of Venom payloads. Sorry for the colors here. I just copied this from somewhere else on the internet. I don't know where I found it. But from these payloads here, mine is a 64-bit. So you can just copy this one. Okay. So with MS of Venom, let me show you the one that I would like. Which one? All right, this one. I'm going to catch my shell using Metapredator. it's allowed in the OSCP and it doesn't count as using Metasploit. And when you run MS of Venom, you can generate a reverse shell payload. In this case, it's saying, hey, MS of Venom, use the Windows Metapredator. This one, you will use this to catch it with Metapredator. In this case, for reverse shell. My local host is going to be your Kali Linux. Local port is going to be the port that you want your Metapredator to listen on. The file is going to be an executable. That's the file type. And of course, I want to save it as rev.exe. So if you hit the enter here, MS of Venom is just going to generate rev.exe. How do we get rev.exe to the system so that we can run it? Very interesting point. That brings us back to our results. You always want to keep in mind your results, right? We have FTP, we have credentials. This time we have credentials. So to make our lives easier, why is this not scrolling up? Do I just have too much stuff here? We have FTP open. So I'm just going to run FTP. Remember, run it from a directory that you want to be in. So I'll say FTP to 192.168.38.163. It's very important that if you're interacting with FTP and any shares, you run your command from your working directory, where if you loot and you upload things, you do it from there. So we do have credentials. Now we have admin. The same username and password that we use for the website works here. A lot of people will be tunnel visioned. They will not even think about this. They'll be very excited about that web interface, and they will not think about this part here. So I need to copy my password. Okay, now we're interacting with a dir. Okay, FTP says we have a file with all kinds of permissions. It's adsecuritystates.ps1. We have a PowerShell script here. Coming back here on the server or under domains, we should be able to enumerate here and see if this thing actually shows us anything. Okay, if you log in on the other port for this thing here, it will show you the same. Okay. So where is this file located on the file system, so we can try to see if we can trigger? And can we write into this location? That's where this thing comes back in. In the domain here, if we go to users, we have user admin. All right. File access. Okay, this is just, oh, here. I don't know if you can see this, but it says, hey, user admin writes in C scripts right here. So a little bit of enumeration you find out is that you go to these C scripts. You will also find this information somewhere in here if you just keep poking around this application. But now we know the user can write to C scripts. So what this shows me is that that's where that is. In fact, if we go to port 80, we'll see that script that we see on FTP here also showing there. So now that we know that, we can do an ls. You see that we have rev.exe. This is the same executable that we just created right here with Metapredator. Okay, let's upload this to our file share and then execute it. So using FTP, we're going to upload our new shell, not shell, our malicious payload to the victim and see if we can execute it. And I'll show you how we can do that. Keep in mind, C scripts, that's where it's going to be in. Okay. If we say put rev.exe, This time it worked. One thing to be aware of here is if Windows Defender is running on the system, it will remove this the moment it gets there. And we have spoken about this. We've seen Windows Defender in action. Always make sure that when you do something like this and it doesn't work, remember Windows Defender. Okay, if I do a dir here, I see that it actually stayed. Usually it doesn't even stay. And when you do a dir, check the value for the size. If this one says 0, this thing is not going to work. Sometimes when you move your payloads, bad things happen. And it will show up here with a value of 0. It happened to me live on this channel before, and people laughed at me because you know it happens all the time. So I know those things. Okay, now that we have rev.exe, let's go and execute this. Rev.exe resides in C scripts, and let's make sure that we verify this notion that is in C scripts. I'm going to sign in on port 80. This is where you would have seen that. And let's make sure we understand these two very well. Okay. So when you sign in on the default port, it's going to ask us, hey, we need you to register this. There we go. Here's our rev.exe. And it's in here. We could have uploaded it from here as well. Another thing that we can do from here is we can edit, which is kind of nice. Here's our PowerShell script that's on the system, which we can execute, by the way. So if we wanted to, we can just put anything in here. Oh, that's actually nice. We can try to execute this PowerShell. So someone probably edited this and instead of putting their payload there. That's another way to do it. Okay. I'm not sure where else it would have told you that that's the location. But it's in C scripts. All right. Now going back to our only place where we can execute commands. So we say os.execute. And what can we do here? cmd.exe. This time we wanted to run something in C. I'll put 2 forward slashes here because when I put 1, it didn't work, so I put 2. Windows is not case sensitive, so that's nice. rev.exe. We can also try to run PowerShell here and edit that PowerShell script. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's bothering me. I need to try it. I haven't tried that. All right, this is ready to fire. Now let's go and set up our Metasploit so that we can listen for our reverse shell. This does not count as using Metasploit in the exam for the OSCP. For those who are taking that exam, using Metapredator reverse shells is just fine. And while it's loading, let me share with you a resource that you can use if you have never used multi-handler. There's another article here that does a really good job. I lost it. If anyone has a nice Metasploit multi-handler reverse shell document, please post it. I thought I had one. No, I don't. All right, so once Metasploit works, we're just going to start, you have to use multi-handler. this is almost like cheating. It makes your life 10 times easier. So I encourage you to try the harder ways first before you start relying a lot on multi-handler for your enumeration. But I've not done this, at least not as many times on this channel, but I did this all the time on the exam for the OSCP. I did not have time to make my life harder, so I use this. So we use exploit multi-handler, then we set our payload to be Windows Metapreter reverse TCP. This payload here has to match what we ran earlier. This payload here has to match this. If they don't match, you might have an unstable shell or no shell at all. So when you use MSF Venom to generate, remember that. Okay. If you say options, it will tell you like, hey, by the way, I listen on local port, and I don't have an L host. So this also has to match what you did earlier. You said you wanted to listen to get your shell on local port 555. So we're going to set that port to 555. Local host was this. We need to set that local host to match here. So with that, local host is on 171. I'm just going to do this because it's just an efficient way to do that. And also local port. Because I have trust issues, I like to do it again so I can actually see that it's actually running. Then I can say run. Now it's listening. And once we are listening, we come here and say, okay, now it's ready to fire. And getting back here, we get our Metapreter shell. It's a really cool thing to do. Yes, Netcat is really cool, but this is by far the best way, especially if you're on a time crunch and you're in an exam that is meant to trick you with a lot of things. Okay, so a few things that you can do here. I'm just going to use my notes here. I can say sysinfo. Is it system info or sysinfo? Every time my brain wants to say system info. I don't know where I get that from. Okay, it's a Windows 10 machine. Can I do ID here? Where am I? Forget this. I'm in here as Vagrant. Ooh. Where am I? Slash O. All right, this would show us, okay, what's going on here? Unfortunately, lucky for you, I left this set impersonate privileges here. By default, these ones come preset for Windows systems. So you can use set impersonate to get your privilege escalation. And I'll show you how to do that. It's a very, very lazy and simple thing. Everybody does it. I mean, the reason why I wanted to show you today about this is because when you do a pen test for your clients, most of the time, most likely when you get a reverse shell, you're going to see set impersonate enabled because it comes by default set. So we have set impersonate here. My main goal was to show you how to do privilege escalation using that PowerShell script because it was supposed to be running as a cron job as administrator, and I couldn't get cron to work on time, and I didn't have time to fix it. So we're going to go with set impersonate. It's very common. Almost everybody, by everybody I mean everyone who has done some Windows enumeration and attacking knows about this. This is like rotten potato in Linux or something. So we have set impersonate, which is fine. So let's go back and I'll show you how you can use the Metapreter shell for us to just quickly do that. I'll exit out of there. Let's clear the screen. Oh, come on, Metapreter doesn't even let me clear my screen. There is a module that comes with Metapreter. And this is actually allowed in the OSCP. And it's allowed in the real world. So I wanted to show you that as well. I don't know what my security onion is going to do about this. I don't think you can see most of what this does, because MetaPredator does, you have some basic encryption going on there. If you did run post Windows gather WinPrivs, it also tells you like, hey, by the way, you are not a local admin, but you do have set impersonate. So this is how you can use MetaPredator to find low-hanging fruits. Most of the time, you won't see anything of value here, but today is your lucky day. Okay, so since we have that, let's say impersonate token NT system. Let me see if this one is going to work. Using the impersonation here. Oh, okay. It called me. It says, hey, you need to be incognito. Can I just do that? The easiest thing is to find an article that shows you exactly how to do this. Let's do it again. I could have just up arrowed that. Not currently running a system. Not all tokens will be available. Call. Okay. So that one doesn't like it. Let me see. Oh, I know why this didn't work. I'm not running. I'm running this as a service. Let me find out a better way to do this. Let's try one more time. No module with incognito found. All right. I don't know how to use this thing from here, but that's how you're supposed to get your administrative reverse show. I mean, a very easy way to escalate your privileges from here. But let's find out a different way. I'm just going to Google this here. MetaPredator. Set impersonate. If that doesn't work, we have to do it by hand. All right. Here's our help. Let's find the tokens that we can. Then we can just impersonate whatever comes up. I don't think this one works for this one. Okay, so there is no available tokens here. Oh, that is actually good that I set it up that way. The reason why there are no available tokens here is because in our Windows system, I'll show you where this is set up. Actually, it's just in our Windows system, I did not let that service interact with the desktop. And the Vagrant is a service account. So my system was more secure than I thought, which is nice. Someone says, I can only use that against a single target. Oh, really? Oh, I have two screens. That's why. So this thing is not working because if we go to our service, this is you now knowing exactly how those permissions work. If we go to the Wing FTP here, in its properties, on the log on, I changed it to this. By default, this service runs as this one here, as local system. But of course, I told it to run as a Vagrant. And because of that, the Vagrant account doesn't have impersonation, which is nice in this case. So what that means is the impersonation is not going to work in our case, but that's okay. I'll show you a different way. So for those who are doing the machine that I have, it's probably not going to work for you. But if you get on an exam or on a machine, we can enumerate for this through the terminal here if we wanted to. But I'll show you either way. Let's drop into a shell. You will notice that if you run rotten potato or win peas, it will say, hey, by the way, I see there is a task that is a scheduled task that is running. And it will tell you what the task is. And I'll show you. Here we have a task. At least this was the intended way. We have a task that is running. And part of its actions is to run PowerShell without a profile to that AD states.ps1. So this brings us back to our machine earlier where we were like, okay, we see that we have this thing here. It's a PowerShell script. It's there. If this script here says it's running as part of a scheduled task, let's see if we can edit and just change a few things in it. And the easiest thing will be, let's just put a reverse shell and have it reach out back to us and start things over again. So it looks like it's struggling. I think I messed with my service. Okay, let's go back. Let me fix my service so it actually runs so we can exploit it. The point here is if you see a PowerShell script or any script that's running, always check if it's running as part of a scheduled task and who owns that script. Then you can just quickly edit that script and have it give you a reverse shell. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm just going to restart my service. I don't know why it's not responding. And usually when you do that, you have to exit out of here. All right, our service is back. Now let's get a reverse shell as administrator. Admin. Let's put our password. We're going to try to edit an existing script that's on the system. This will be nice if it works. Edit text. It says there's instructions here. That's my GitHub. Okay. I don't want anything here. Let's get rid of that. Let's have this thing run our script. I just want it to run C. Is it backwards or forward? rev.exe. Okay, we're just telling this, hey, just run my reverse shell. But this time, when it does, it's going to run it as whoever is running the scheduled task. So let's see if I can save that. Unbelievable. You can just edit someone's script from a browser. All right, so this is going to run it on a schedule. So I'm going to say, I already have this set up. Yeah, let's listen. This time we're listening, we'll get our reverse shell that's going to be triggered by this PowerShell script. But I just put one line there. And moment of truth. If our task scheduler was running, let's cheat here and make it run. Our task scheduler is going to run that. It's going to run it as administrator. Okay. Yo, run now. Let's see. And we get a metapreter. So if task scheduler is running, if there's a scheduled task that is running in Windows, now you know two things. You know you can abuse. If you see any scripts on the system, the first thing that comes to your mind is, are these things running as part of a scheduled task? Then run your enumeration, WinPs, whatever you do. Check for scheduled tasks. In this case, in Windows, this is where scheduled tasks are. And a quick rundown for you. You specify in the general tab who this task runs as. The triggers, meaning how often. This is running every 2 minutes. The actions, it will start a program without profile and an unrestricted execution policy. It's running C script, and the script is AD security. So there you have it. We know how to execute multiple ways here. Just the more things that you have in your toolbox, the better. Thanks, BT, for the encouragement. I appreciate it, bro. All right, so that was what I wanted to show you. I thought for sure set impersonate was going to work. Now you and I know it doesn't work when you change things. So I really like that. Next time I'm going to put it again in the same settings. But I hope the scheduled tasks are covered for that, and you now know. If you are attacking this machine, the scheduled task might not work. I don't know what was wrong with my scheduled task here. It doesn't like to run. And I didn't have time to make it run properly. But it doesn't like to run on schedule. Maybe it's because I put 2 minutes. It doesn't like 2 minutes. I should actually change this to 5 minutes. All right. There's another part to this. I don't want us to forget. We have this here, intrusion detection system that is running. Well, we did some shenanigans here. Did our intrusion detection system see anything? What did it see? And with the metapreter shell that we got, does that encrypt all the traffic? And when we moved reverse shells, did we see that? That's our intrusion detection system. This thing here is supposed to detect everything that we have done, if it's set up correctly. Not everything. Most of this is not going to be detected. Where did I put it? All right, so here, first, let's look at the default alerts that this thing fires. And the best way to look at that is the alerts tab within Security Onion. We already know Nmap is going to be one of the biggest contributors to this in the alerts. And Suricata didn't catch anything else other than Nmap. So this needs... Awesome. This needs some tuning here. Our intrusion detection system failed us. Or at least our alerts. There is our reverse shell. There is our files that we're moving using FTP. We can see them. But Suricata, for whatever reason, did not even catch them. So that's the fail that I'm including here. It should be apparent to our security analyst what happened, but of course, this does not tell us. So we have to go and hunt. You can use the hunt interface here. Or, as I like to do it, I like to go to the source Kibana in the Discover tab. This is interacting with the data in its raw format, which I really like a lot, because then you get to see all kinds of crazy stuff in a nice interface. All right, first, we see that this is when we did our scan, and this is just the other events that we had. First, we moved a file that was called rev.exe. Oh, who saw it on our network, and how did they see it? It looks like it was seen by a couple times. Yeah, it was seen a couple times. This is Zik. All right, we know we moved that file using FTP, and sure enough, here we go. FTP rev.exe. And it tells us in plain English, hey, the file, by the way, it was received and it was transferred. So what is the takeaway here? The disappointing thing for my lab is someone is moving executable files in plain text in your network, and your intrusion detection system, at least the alerts, don't even fire. That's a problem. So maybe we need to create a Suricata rule that says, here, if you see anybody moving plain text executable files here, just trigger on that. Let us know. In this case, our out of the box doesn't have that. But we now see it actually happened. If you needed to, what I'm going to do in a little bit here is we're going to track down our reverse shell, and I'll open it in Wireshark like I did last time. We can track down this file, download it, and give it to someone who knows how to analyze malicious files. Like, those malware people who really know how to break down a malware and understand what it's doing. You can extract this file from the network through PCAP and give it to them, and then they can do their stuff. It's something that I admire, that I'm hoping once I learn all these things, I can actually get into reverse engineering and understand people's executable files. It's really kind of cool. But so far we saw that once. Let's look at our port. Of course, you can say something like this using the querying language. No. Just destination.port. Okay, this was done several times, of course. So how would you know this? How do you know to look for port 555? Someone who's probably thinking, well, you're just searching randomly here. Well, usually what happens is your user calls you and like, oh, my computer is slow or something weird is happening. Then you come in here and you say, hey, you sign into the user's computer and you run, say, things like netstat. And I'm just going to open PowerShell here and show you. Oh, whoa. That's a lot of ports. So usually you're messing around a Windows machine. You're probably like investigating, oh, what's happening here? This machine, there's an indicator somehow. Maybe a lot of traffic is coming from this machine. Maybe this user is complaining their machine is slow. And you start poking on the ports, you realize, Interesting enough, we have this connection here. What's up with port 555? Why are we established with this IP address on port 555? That's how you then say, wait a second, what service is that? Usually you're just poking around. And you also see some random ports here. But this is where you start. You're like, okay, let's jump into my data and see what is happening here. So if this is making you dizzy, then you realize, oh, that port established a connection here, 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 here in the last 2 hours, and here. What is happening? And it was seen by Zeke. You and I know this port shows up because we established a reverse shell a couple times. This was me just practicing and messing with it, and this was the 2 times when we got a reverse shell. Good information to have. And also you can tell this was Zeke connection, and it will confirm the IP address of our victim to the IP address that is happening here. Okay, what else did we do? We edited an AD stats file. Wouldn't it be nice to see if this file that we edited in a browser showed that we actually edited it? This adstats.ps1 here. adsecurity_stats.ps1. I wonder if it's going to show us that we messed with that file. I don't know. Let's find out. And sure enough, we have some information. So if you were suspicious that someone used a file that already existed and you are hunting, and I always say this every week, this is where I think all the capture the flag, vulnerable, OSCP gets out of the door. You're learning and your curious mind now gets to work, right? What can you do with this information that you can see here? And for the most important thing is asking questions like, okay, we edited a file in a browser. When that traffic is moving across a network and it's decrypted, what does that look like? You can look at that using TCP dump or Wireshark, or you can use Zeke here. It tells us, hey, by the way, in the URI, we went to this IP address, went to the editor, and then we went to the file, this file here, and we edited it using a browser. So we know the attacker did edit it. I wonder if it will tell us if that file also was executed to give us a reverse shell. Because we did execute that file to get a reverse shell. Oh, I was hoping that it would say, hey, this file exists and that. No. All right, I'm going to look at that one more time. This is very fascinating. Oh, I see. This is the editor, this is the editor, this is the editor. That file, when we executed it on the command line, it didn't show up here. This is all HTTP traffic through the browser. All right, let's actually download this file here. Let me show you how we can download this file. Let's download the PowerShell instead of the executable. In any of these instances, let me see a connection ID that should be unique. A log UID. I guess we'll go with this one. The ID underscore. If we go to the hunt here, we can search for that specific transaction and see if we can request a pickup. Um, there we go. Okay, this was a GET request. That's good. So with this security onion, if you just click here and go to more actions, we can request a pickup. This is part of your job, you know. If you see a bunch of things you don't understand, we go to pickup. And here it actually displays for us like, hey, I did see a scene arc, so you know the TCP handshake finished, who started it, who finished it, and all that stuff. We're interacting with port 80. This is when we're editing the PowerShell script. But this is not exciting. I like to download this pickup, open it in Wireshark. I mean, this is nice. I like Wireshark because that's what I learned first. So I'm not going to waste time using the interface, but this is a nice, quick way to view. See if we can bring Wireshark here. My Wireshark is going to be color coordinated because I like this one. Yeah, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. This is the GET request that I was hoping it will have my file. Highly doubt that it will work. It was a browser editor. I did not download the full file. So that's going to be interesting. I edited the thing in the browser. I did not download it. So let's find out. Yeah, this one is trying to export the browser tab that I did. It's trying to save me a browser tab. But if I downloaded that file, this is where it will be. So because of that, let's do another one. Too many tabs. Let's download the rev.exe file. Let's use the same idea. We want this ID here. These IDs are very, very important because they're very unique. And when you go to your hunt interface, underscore ID, goes to that. Let's go. And here's our packet. Just click there anyway here. Actions. Give me a pickup. Who started it? Who finished it? This time actually it was FTP traffic. Last time it was HTTP when we tracked down an executable. So this is actually kind of cool that we are looking at FTP. Where did Wireshark go? All right, it's FTP, and of course it's not as color coordinated. I only do the yellow for HTTP. More interesting things about FTP traffic. If you have never looked at FTP traffic in Wireshark, you're in for a treat here. See how someone signed in as admin and they passed a password. So if someone got a hold of this pickup, they now know this is the password that we used right here, username, password here. And the file, when we put it, it was here. So I believe we can export this one. Someone help me. How do I export this? I only know how to export HTTP traffic. For FTP, I should be able to export the same way. What's wrong with this? No. Yeah, it's all in plain text. I don't have anything for security onion learning, to be honest. That's interesting. I thought for sure I'll just be like, hey, let's just export this thing. No, it doesn't. It doesn't like that. So we open the banner in binary mode for file transfer. Opening. Yeah, TFTP didn't work. But it does show us all the commands that we ran here. I should just Google it. How do I export FTP files? There should be a way. If we can do it for HTTP. All right, that's our homework for next week. When I find out how to do that, I'll probably make a video. I don't have time to Google it right now, but I just wanted to show you. You can track down this traffic and see it in Wireshark. I mean, we went crazy. This is by far the craziest thing to do, right? We start with a machine, we enumerate it, we exploit the machine. Once we get into the machine, we do all these shenanigans, we get our reverse shells, we went through Metapredator, went through Security Onion to look at the traffic. Now we are now looking at the traffic in Wireshark and how to exploit and how to understand what happened and also how to understand how to export. But for now, forget that I was trying to export this. Know that if it's FTP, you can also see the usernames and password and everything that was passed in plain text, which is kind of neat to do. If anybody knows, let me know in the comments how to extract the files that were moved using FTP. I would like to know how to do that because it seems like it's a simple thing. Otherwise, if you have any questions, now is the time. I know I'm very surprised a lot of people showed up even though we have the Super Bowl. Thank you very much. This shows that you guys really value this stuff. Yes. I have already accepted that if this live stream goes smooth, I'm lying to you that I'm doing it live. It has to not go smooth. I think that if things go smooth, it's setting an unnecessary expectation for people. When people do themselves and theirs is not going smooth, they're going to feel like they're so dumb because all the videos that they see are perfect. And this is an example of no, you don't know everything, you have to Google everything, and you're going to have brain farts. Like, there's certain brain farts that I have that I look back and I'm like, really? I couldn't remember that. Which is kind of interesting. BT is still stuck on extracting the file. Let's give it one more chance. Here's a file. And okay. All right, we'll look at this later. So if you missed the whole stream, this was fun. Please watch the whole stream. The machine is in the comments. You'll be able to get a reverse shell, but probably not privilege escalation, which is fine. But please practice your Windows enumeration. Today, I just wanted to show you something very easy to do. Then we can see what we can do. But for now, I think this will be a nice place to end it. I hope you learned something with me today. On Tuesday, I have a video that's going to show you how to deal with base64. I'll explain what base64 is. It's a very simple, straightforward video. I had fun making it. Make sure that you do that. And BT is showing us how to save this file. He's saying show rate data, change to raw, then save as. Okay, yeah, I'll practice that. Then we can do that. Otherwise, thank you all for being here. I hope you had fun. And also, I hope to see you next week. We're going to change things a little bit. So please keep joining every week. Otherwise, see you next time.